Hi guys, welcome to episode 2 of my Kerbal Space Program in-depth tutorial series. This tutorial is going to focus specifically on the spaceplane hangar, how to build spaceplanes, and some problems that you might be having if you've tried it, or hopefully you'll find some ways to improve your designs off of what I show you here. I'm going to take you through the controls, how to build your own spaceplane that I designed here step by step, and then I'll show you some of the things to look for when you're flying it. Alright, so the spaceplane that we're going to be building today is this one that I just built a few minutes ago. So here it is. This is the AFX Predator, named after our flag there in the background. This plane works pretty good. It handles well. You can fly it with or without SAS. It's up to you. I wouldn't recommend jettisoning the RCS tanks on the bottom, as that'll change your aerodynamic profile of the craft. Alright, so let's get started. So first of all, I'm going to select this MK2 cockpit. And now the controls in the spaceplane hangar are a lot different from some of the other controls. So you're going to use your right mouse button to rotate around the screen. Middle mouse button now does kind of this walk around. And then your mouse wheel is going to zoom in and out. Alright, so now we got that all the way. That's really all you need to know as far as controls go. So attaching onto this hangar here, we're going to go up to the control tab, grab this inline advanced stabilizer, and attach it to the front. Next, we're going to go back to the pod section, select this MK1 cockpit. So this will allow you to have a co-pilot if you so choose. Now we're going to go into utility, grab this second little battery bank up here, attach that there so we have power. Now go into propulsion, and on the second page grab this MK2 size 1 adapter, and then right next to that one grab the MK2 fuselage, and now grab another MK2 size 1 adapter, but this time we're going to rotate it using D. Now go back into control and grab this inline reaction wheel and attach that to the back. Now go into aerodynamic, and down here at the bottom grab the engine nacelle, whatever, ramjet engine. Put that on there. Let's see. Now go back into propulsion. And on the second page grab this little fuel tank on the bottom here. And you want it pushing into the craft halfway, because what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to sink the engine on the back of it more in, so it's not poking out. So go ahead and grab this little basic jet engine here and snap that on the back like that. Alright, so this is the main body of our craft. This is what we're going to be attaching everything onto. So now what we're going to do is go into aerodynamic, and down here on the bottom grab the structural wing. Now we're going to turn on symmetry. We're going to attach this to the front, right about there. Looks good. Now grab another one, and you just want to slide it up until the point where it doesn't fan out like that. So right there is good. And they'll kind of go into each other. You might notice a little bit of Z-fighting with the textures, but that's fine. Now grab this AV-R8 wingjet. We're going to snap that to the inside of this. Right on the edge like that. Alright, next we're going to do the side engines that are going to go on here. So to make those, we're actually going to turn off symmetry mode. Grab a ramjet engine here, snap it to the top. Now grab the radial engine body, and put that behind it. Now go into propulsion, And down at the very bottom right, grab this FL-T200 fuel tank. Snap that on there. And now grab a basic jet engine and snap that onto the back here. So that's our engine body. Now we're going to turn symmetry on, grab the whole engine body, and we're just going to move it in there until it turns red. So right there is good. Now we're going to go into aerodynamic and grab this ram air intake and snap that on here until it tells us we can. So if it's giving you a hard time like this is here and that's going red, just turn symmetry mode off and do them one at a time. So there we go, that fixed that. Now we're going to duplicate it and snap it onto itself. So hold down Alt on your keyboard and then left click on the main part of the engine body right here, and that duplicates it. Now just try to find the symmetry on the craft so it's green and it lines up with the other one. And of course symmetry mode was deactivated, so I have to do that again. That looks good. Always make sure your symmetry mode's turned on. It likes to turn itself off in the spaceplane hangar for some reason. Alright, now that we got that, go back here and grab another structural wing from aerodynamic tab. And we're going to put that on the inside over here. And you just want to move it up about as far as you can. Then hold down Shift on your keyboard and use W to rotate it inward like that, so that way it takes up that interior space. That looks good. Now go into structural, and on the first page here, grab this small hard point. We're going to put that on the back of that structural wing here. Make sure it's all nice and aligned with everything else. Alright, now we're going to add some wings. So back in aerodynamic, grab the delta wing. Just put that straight on the ramjet engine right there. And now add a standard control surface. Use D on your keyboard to rotate it so it's at the proper orientation. And just attach it on there like that. Now grab that whole wing and angle it slightly down. Now use Alt, left click to duplicate it again, and move this one up a little bit more. There, looks good. Alright, now we're going to add some tail fins. I like to use these Delta Deluxe wing jets on the back. We're going to put these on the second engine, slightly angled inward. About like that. Alright, now go into Utility and grab the landing gear. All the way down here at the bottom, small gear bay. We're going to put that on this little square right underneath. Use D to rotate it. And we're going to put that one facing this direction, and then the other two are going to face the normal direction. So turn symmetry on. And just angle it underneath the craft. There, looks good. Yeah, looks good. Now in the Science tab, grab the Communitron 16, put that on here, and then just hold down Shift and use W to rotate it till it's at an angle that you would like. Snap that on there. And now grab an accelerometer and put that right on top of this forward reaction wheel. That. And Utility tab, grab a Telus LV Bay Mobility Enhancer, which is ladder. Then use D to rotate it. And you want to put it right about here. So it's at a slight angle, nothing too harsh. Now go into Control, and we're going to add some RCS ports with symmetry. And we'll put those right there. A couple more over on this wing. So use E and Q to rotate them when they're on this wing, and hold down Shift to rotate them at 5-degree increments. You want them pointing straight up, and then grab another one and do the same thing to the bottom. It doesn't really matter if they're perfectly aligned on the wing. Alright, now turn on your center of mass and center of lift, and you'll see that our center of mass and center of lift are right about on top of each other. But it's not quite good yet. We don't have any RCS gas, so let's add that now. So go into your structural tab on the second page, top right, get the radial decoupler. And we're gonna add these right about here. Hold down Shift and use Q and E to rotate them until they're at an angle that you like. Then on propulsion, second page, bottom left, gonna grab the, what is that, 150 monopropellant tanks, and we're gonna put those right here. That looks pretty good. And what those did is they helped us move our center of gravity closer to the center of the lift. So whenever you're building space planes, you always want to make sure that your center of lift and center of mass are right on top of each other. If you have it behind it or in front of it, it's going to handle a little differently, and if it's too far in one direction or the other, it's going to make the plane impossible to control. Your center of thrust should always be directly behind it. If center of thrust is closer to center of mass, it doesn't really matter. It'll all handle roughly about the same. So if you're building a space plane and it's really heavy in the back, kind of like this one will be, or if you make an SSTO where you need to add rocket engines back here, you may have to move the center of lift in front of the center of mass just so you have more control over the nose of the plane. So keep that in mind when you're building space planes. Alright, so we need a couple more control things on the side, so I'm going to add 2 of these RCSs back there and up on the front. I'm actually going to get rid of these and replace it with protection ones and put those under here. Doesn't really matter how perfectly aligned they are. Alright. Now I did notice a weird thing that happened before. For some reason, the outer engines will not use fuel at the same rate as the ones that are closer to the center. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that the same problem will reoccur, so to fix that, I grab a fuel duct from the propulsion page and just attach that from the outer one to the inner one. And that should fix any fuel problem if it occurs. Now, if these are using fuel at a faster rate than these, then we can just go ahead and take that off later. Alright. So this space plane is pretty much ready to go. I'm just going to take a second here to talk about landing gear placement and some things to look for. Right now, this plane is relatively structurally unstable. It will still fly, and it'll fly just fine, but what you'll notice is that when you nose the plane up and down, when you do this, you might notice some flex in your wings, and you never want flex of any kind on your plane because you're changing the aerodynamic profile and your center of mass is moving whenever you do that, and it'll change how the plane handles. So to fix that, go into the structural tab and select the struts, and then just put struts wherever you think you might have some structural instability. So I'm going to go ahead and put ones on the engines here on the top and bottom. And then also on the inner engines. I'm going to use one to connect it to this wing. And then I'm going to use a couple more to connect this engine to the center part. And what this will do is it'll prevent any sort of flexing that might go on when you're flying the aircraft. I'm just trying to keep these straight. And then over here on the main wings, I'm gonna add a couple more on the inside and on the outside. Alright, and that's all it needs right there, just to make sure that there's no flexing going on whenever you're flying the plane, because you don't ever want to see that. And it might also impact how the plane lands, because you want to make sure you have enough clearance, and you want to make sure that all of your wheels touch the ground at the same time. Otherwise it might careen off to the right or left. Alright, now whenever you're placing the landing gear on a plane, you want to make sure that it's back far enough to where you can tilt the plane up and get up off the ground, but you don't want it so far back, otherwise you won't be able to actually lift the plane. And you don't want it too far forward, otherwise your engines might hit the runway and destroy all your engines. So try to avoid having engines that protrude out the back too far. Always check your staging out here before you launch. Make sure that the jettison things are all the way on the top, because you don't ever really want to use those. And now I always like to have an engine cutoff. So up here on action groups, I'm going to go into custom 1 and select every group of engine, and then just put the toggle engine on there. So what this is going to do is whenever I press 1 on my keyboard, it's going to shut down every single engine, and then when I press 1 again, it will activate every single engine. This is most useful when you're building single stage to orbit aircraft, because air intake engines will not work at a certain altitude because there's no air to put into the engine, and they'll shut off at different rates. So your craft will lean over to the right or left, or you might lose control because you're not having an even amount of thrust distributed to your plane. So always kind of have a backup plan for your engines. And that's pretty much it. If you want to make an action group for like the antenna or the ladder, you can go ahead and do that. I never really care that much. Oh yeah, one last thing. Back here in parts, under utility, I like to put this thermoelectric generator right here, 3rd row in the middle, and put that right behind this cabin. And then just use, let's see, oh, wrong way, there we go. Turn off symmetry, and just use S to rotate it down 90 degrees. And then stick it in there. Right about there is good. So that thermoelectric generator will keep the entire craft powered, so that way we'll never run out of electricity, because these engines do consume power and all the SAS will consume your electric charge, so that's why we have some extra battery power in here. But that should be good. I'm pretty sure the placement on this is good to go for our first run. Everything looks fine. Yeah, that looks good. If you want to have a co-pilot in your craft, you can always go up here to crew, and then on this empty seat you can just select whoever you want and just add them. So I'm going to add Mundo down here, like that. And now it's ready to fly. Go ahead and make it daytime here with time warp. Right now, the space planes do actually have lights on these landing gear. If you hit the lights here, you can see those go on. They're just at the base of the landing gear over here, so you don't really have to add extra lights onto your plane. And you want to use brakes whenever you're coming in for a landing, or if your plane starts to roll on the one way and you don't want it to roll, just hit the brakes there to turn your brakes on. So I'm going to turn those off right now, and I'm just going to fly this thing without the use of SAS for the first part, and then I'm going to turn SAS on once I get off the runway, just to show you guys how it flies. Alright, so here we go. And there you go. Short little flight for you guys with a little landing just to show you guys how it turns out. And this worked really well for the first flight for the same aircraft that I just recreated basically. You can do a lot of different things with this aircraft. I've made a vertical takeoff version, a single stage to orbit version. I've actually flown this thing all the way over to Duna and then glided it across the surface just to test if air intake engines work on Duna, and they do not. But that's all the time I have for you guys for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed the spaceplane tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them. Hopefully this will help you guys build space planes. I hope I explained enough about center lift and center mass, how to keep that in there. It doesn't really matter how many engines you put on your plane, as long as you have enough thrust to propel the plane and get it off the ground, really. There is a thrust to weight ratio. If you have the mod for it, you can figure out what that is, but other than that, it's fine. You can replace all of these engines with the more powerful versions if you choose. You can change the intakes on the front, do whatever you want. I added the radial ones on the top of there just for some extra air power. It does help a little bit, but not much. I'll show you guys that real quick before I head out. So if you so choose, you can put these radial air intakes here on the aerodynamic tab. You can just go ahead and snap a couple of these on here. Looks about good. Oh yeah, and one little fun thing for you guys also before I leave is you can use this external command seat. And it's actually pretty funny if you do. Hopefully I don't still have two guys in there. Nope, just one. Alright. So the radial air intakes do help a little bit by pushing more air into the engine, but it won't help it all that much. You might notice a 40 meter per second increase on your overall power and an extra 1 to 2,000 meters altitude gain, but that's really all they're going to help you. All right. Oh, get up. Oh my god. This usually works. He doesn't have that big of a problem walking on top of the plane. Get him over that command seat. There we go. Come on. Board. There we go. So if you so choose, you can also put a nice little command seat up on the top of your craft, or anything really, and it can be piloted from there.